Naruse June is a young, cheerful, and talkative girl with a vivid imagination. She loves to dream about princes and fantasy lands where girls like her are princesses and are in wait for their Prince Charming. There is one place in particular that the young girl visits regularly after school, a castle made on the hill just beyond her house. What the girl doesn't know is it's actually a love hotel. One day, as June cheerfully trots to the gates of the love hotel, she notices her father coming out in his car with another woman. Innocent as she was, June simply goes home and relates the events to her mother. She tells the story as if her father was a prince with another princess, not knowing what the whole thing meant. Naturally, her mother is distraught. She's devastated and ends up giving her husband a divorce. The trucks arrive to help June's father move out. June has no idea what's going on. Her father didn't do anything wrong, did he? Why was her mother angry with him? She goes to her father and begs him to stay, telling him that she would talk to mother if they had an argument, but her father coldly looks at her and tells her that it was all her fault. She had ratted him out and ruined his life and hers as well. The little girl doesn't know what to do and runs away back up the hill, and midway through she sits down and starts crying. Suddenly out of nowhere, a magical egg appears, singing a song. He tells her that all her troubles are because of her words, the words that had taken away so much from her. He then lays a curse upon her and takes away her sorrows in exchange for her words and her voice. Several years have now passed, and June is completely different from the cheerful, talkative girl that she once was. She barely has any friends, and her relationship with her mother has soured as well. She doesn't speak at all in class or at home, and had a frown across her face at all times. One day at school, their music teacher decides that a new outreach club committee needs to be formed in order to conduct a program for the outreach club coming up soon. This program is displayed to the elderly people of the society by the students of the school. The teacher notoriously picks the most outcast 4 students of his class, hoping they could participate in class activities and perhaps become more comfortable with themselves. The 4 members of the committee selected are Daiki Tasaki, an ace player of the school basketball team who had been out from the team for the last few months due to his broken arm. Tasaki is a hothead and had broken his arm just before the Nationals game. His whole team blames him for the loss that had followed. Natsuki Nido, a timid girl who was once a really great member of the cheerleading club, but she has for some reason lost her way in life and passes her days without any proper direction. Sakagami Takumi, another quiet kid who more often spends his time daydreaming in class and spends most of his free time with his mischievous friends in the TDM club. Finally, Naruse June. All 4 of them, as well as the whole class, are shocked at the teacher's decision. They're more surprised to see June in the list than others. She had never spoken or participated in class ever, so for her name to be one of the committee members came as a shock. But to add to everyone's surprise, for the first time, June speaks. Or rather, tries to speak to protest against the decision. But for some reason, she's unable to utter a single word and runs out of the room. Later that day, Takumi decides that he'll go to the teacher's office to get his name off the list, but when he arrives there, the teacher is nowhere to be found. Takumi, who was once fond of music, grabs the accordion. He starts singing a song which is similar to the one that June had heard the egg singing years ago, and it grabs her attention. June watches Takumi as he plays the accordion and runs away when the teacher arrives. Takumi is startled to notice this, but tells his teacher what he was here for. He asks him to get him off the committee, but the teacher asks for human sacrifices if he wants to get off the team. There was no way he'd be able to get his way out of this one. Takumi returns back home to his grandparents and finds June's mother there. She's actually an insurance agent and is raising June alone. However, she had been lying that June was actually a really talkative and cheerful girl at home. Takumi doesn't really mention anything against it. The next day in class, the teacher suggested that they should do a musical as this year's outreach program's performance. The students are a bit overwhelmed by this, as it's the hardest among the other options provided. The teacher, however, seems to really want to do a musical this year. Later that day, the committee meets up in the teacher's office, and all the members except Tasaki show up. Tasaki is still a bit too proud to be part of some lame musical group. Takumi seems to agree with the teacher. He believes that sometimes to convey a message through music means a lot more than plain words. Takumi tells the committee that he wants to do a musical, and even though the whole class might object to the idea, the committee decides to put it forward to the class. While returning home that day, June confronts Takumi. She cannot talk, but she uses her phone to type messages and show it to him. She drags him to a nearby shrine and texts him everything that has happened to her. She tells him about the egg and how it had cursed her. Now every time she spoke, her stomach hurt and she could barely speak a word. Takumi doesn't really know if she's joking about the magical egg, but somehow relates to her issues. June asks him if he really meant it when he said that music would make the words have more meaning. Takumi tells her that he believes in what he says, and suggests her to sing if she can't speak and see if her stomach hurts. June goes back home and is still fearful that her stomach might burst in pain, clutches a pillow, and starts singing. Oddly so, she doesn't feel any pain at all. So, the next very day, the committee members, excluding Tasaki, present the ideas for the next outreach program, and they include a musical in the list. The whole class is surrounded by disbelief, and Tasaki in particular is not happy. He starts berating June, and tells everyone that it's an impossible task to pull off a musical if one of the main planners can't even speak. Takumi berates Tasaki in response, and then one of his friends almost gets into a fight with Takumi. Just then, to everyone's utter surprise, June sings. She sings how she can't take anyone fighting in front of her and simply runs away. She might not be able to speak, but her legs are definitely better than anyone else's. That night, Nito convinces Tasaki, who was feeling pretty bad about his behavior, to come to the planning committee and help out. Elsewhere, as always, June's mother is late to get home from work, and June, uncomfortably so, has to handle a visitor. Her mother arrives just as the visitor leaves and starts pouring down on her for not speaking to anyone and being a loner. June is unable to speak her mind and can do nothing but run away. She tracks down Takumi, who had been out to collect some groceries. She sends him a long message, which is a story she wrote for the musical itself, and requests him to convert it into a musical, just like the song he played on the accordion that day. Confused and intrigued, Takumi takes her back to his place and they start on what she had already written. In her story, June explains how once upon a time, there was a princess who wanted to go to a ball. However, what she didn't know was that the ball was a punishment chamber for prisoners who were forced to dance forever. Once the princess got to know that the ball actually was made for prisoners, she started committing crimes, but no one would accuse her of the crimes because she was a princess. Until one day, an evil egg monster arrived and told her that harsh words were the way for her to go to the ball. And so, the princess started bad-mouthing everyone, and one day lost her ability to speak. The story is not finished yet, but Takumi manages to make up a short song with what he has. He believes in June and wants to help her. So the next day, the committee meets up again, and this time Tasaki shows up too. During their conversation, Tasaki is confronted by his juniors from the basketball team, who think he's a bit of a bully for someone who hasn't played in a long while. June gets really upset at their harsh words, and for a moment forgets her stomach pain and screams at them to never use such harsh words to others, because you never know when those words might come true. The next day, the group decides to go ahead with June's script and declare it to the whole class. At first, the class is not so convinced, but gradually they all come to terms after the teacher tells them that they can all assist and will even get a little bit of funding for the project. In the next few days, the preparations for the program begins with June given the role of the princess and Takumi playing the role of the prince. Nito would be the narrator while Tasaki would play the egg. The rest of the characters would be the other students, with the DTM club helping with the songs and the teacher helping as well. Tasaki starts realizing that he was a bit too arrogant in the past and also manages to reconcile with the baseball team. One day, when they're all gathered for practice at Takumi's house, June gets to know that Takumi's parents are divorced as well. His mother had left them, and ever since then, his father had paid little attention to him, which is why he lived with his grandparents. He tells June that it wasn't his fault that they split, even though he feels some guilt, and this is also the case for June. Her father cheating on her mother was not her fault. June gets hopeful and has even started to develop a bit of a crush on Takumi. She decides that her play should have a happy ending instead of the sad one she wrote before. The final day of the preparation, as the whole class is gathered to clear the stage for the show, Takumi and Nito are sent to dispose of the waste that had been collected. They're both very hesitant to be alone at once, as they were once dating when they were in junior high. Their relationship had ended because of Takumi being unable to take the pressure of his parents getting a divorce. However, neither of them had been able to move on from each other. On their way out, Nito confronts Takumi about his growing interest in June, but Takumi tells her that he doesn't have feelings for her. He only wanted to help her because it gave him hope that he could do better in life as well. June hears this from afar and is broken. She had already started to imagine Takumi as her Prince Charming, and to realize that he didn't like her back breaks her heart. She runs away from there crying and once again encounters the magical egg. The egg sounds very disappointed that she had been speaking, even though he had taken her voice. She argues that she hadn't spoken a word, but the egg reminds her that she still spoke with her heart, and this time he takes it away too. The next day, everyone is getting ready for the program, but June is nowhere to be found. The students search for her everywhere, but she's simply lost. They're all pretty pissed because June was supposed to play the main character, but she ditched them in the last minute. So Takumi goes in search of June, promising to come back in time. Until then, Nito is given the role of the princess. The crowd starts gathering at the hall, and even June's mother arrives and sits beside Takumi's grandparents. Takumi, on the other hand, searches the whole school and even the shrine, and realizes that June must be in the same abandoned Love Hotel castle. His suspicions are right, and he finds the girl lying there in despair. It appears that she had lost all hope. She doesn't want to talk or meet with anyone. Takumi pleads for her to come back and tells her that everyone is counting on her, but June feels that all her words can bring about is sorrow, which is why she won't go, nor will she speak. Takumi tells her that her words may bring sorrow, but he's willing to take them all so she can speak to him, even if she doesn't want to speak to anyone else. She can use harsh words on him, speak the words of her heart, and be sure that he will not get hurt. June does exactly that and berates him, but slowly, her heart feels lighter, and she feels more calmer and freer than her former self. Elsewhere, the play begins, and Nito plays the princess role quite well. The story of the play makes June's mother realize that her daughter had been hating herself for so long, for ruining their marriage when it wasn't her fault at all. June's mom can't bear to watch the play because of the guilt, but Takumi's grandmother asks her to stay and respect what their children had created. Takumi tells June that her words, despite them being harsh, make him happy, and she should always speak her heart. The whole curse and eggs thing was something she had thought of herself, and she had a beautiful voice, which she should always use. June apologizes and agrees to go back to the show. She also expresses her love for Takumi, but he simply thanks her and tells her that he loves someone else. The duo return to the show and perform splendidly in front of the crowd, and even though Nito was the princess, June plays the part of her heart and sings her songs to everyone. And at the end of the day, the egg was never real. Just like June, we all have our insecurities that bind us down, and sometimes it's best that we stay true to ourselves and defeat these insecurities rather than hiding behind them. Sometimes it's best to listen to the anthem of the heart. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification icon, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thanks for watching.